Hello, this is the Retro Bear back in the gaming pantry once again, or the nostalgia pantry, I think probably we should call it now. Welcoming you to another great video detailing some stuff which isn't to do with gaming. Yes. Usually it's a gaming related video, but today we're going to do something completely different. Once again to highlight other items and other things that I am interested in and like to share with you here on YouTube or wherever you may be watching it. I don't know, you could be watching it not on YouTube possibly, I don't know, is it possible? I don't know. Anyway, nice to have you back in the pantry. Let me introduce you to the game in the room, which is back once again. And we have here Pack Attack on the Super Nintendo, because we've been weeding out the old Xbox and the old emulator disc and been playing a few classics to keep myself occupied during my week off work. So Pack Attack on the Super Nintendo, which is sort of like a puzzle game. I do like the old puzzle games, quite good. And yeah, not bad at all, this one. Not bad. It's got Pac-Man in it, so it's a bit different. I'm going to try and find something a bit sort of themed about what we're going to be talking about today, but I couldn't. So I'm going to sort of jump straight into that as we go along. Still have coffee. So, no games today, but we're going to talk about another subject which is very, very close to my heart. Yeah, you'll get a picture. Those of you sort of think I'm all about games, or all about collecting games as opposed to playing games. You'll gradually go more about me by sort of things. So we've obviously done wrestling. We've done something else, which I don't know whether I'm going to upload that video first or not, so I won't talk about that one just now. Here's another insight into the warped mind of Retro Bear. I do love a good double entendre. Who doesn't? Most people who've come to know me over the years will know that anything left hanging which could possibly be made suggestive, whatever, can be sort of thrown into doubt by adding a quick pardon, or what, or get it out then on the end of it. And that's because at a very early age I was influenced by that sort of humour, because it was always around when I was a kid and growing up and that, and you'll know what I'm talking about because you'll see the title of the episode. But for years this film series just amused me greatly, and always has done and always will do. I will still, regardless, hold this series very, very highly. And I am of course talking about the British institution. And again, if I've watched people watch from possibly in America or anywhere else, you'll have no idea what this is. The great British edition of the Carry On film. Now, there's a great load. I'll talk about that in a second. There's a great load of stuff to go through on this one. I'm going to try and keep it quick and cheerful. But from 1958 until 1978, I think it was 79, there was a series of films. 55 to 78, I think it was. It was a series of films which ran pretty much one a year in the cinema, putting various reoccurring well-known actors and actresses into situations involving nursing, taxiing, the Wild West, the Indian, the Empire running of India. Where else? The French Revolution, the Foreign Legion, and even right at the very end, sort of a spoof of softcore 1970s porno films. Bit of a strange way to go out. With a recurring cast of people who regularly popped up in all these films. So much so that people got associated with these films for the rest of their lives, no matter what they did. And it was a bit of a stigma to try and shake off. You know, when a character, somebody decides they don't want to do this role anymore, they don't want to get typecast, like Christopher Eccleston did with Doctor Who. I'm only doing one season, I don't want to get typecast. These people were very much sort of associated, so great, you know, sort of big sort of personalities like Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Joan Sims, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Jim Dale, Frankie Howard, Bernard Bresslaw, Barbara Windsor, Peter Butterworth, just to name a few. People who you would automatically recognise by seeing them, go, oh yeah, they're from the Carry On films. You would know that immediately just by looking at people. And practically so many people, even if they just a quick, you know, pop up, Wilfred Bramble from Steptoe, who played Old Man Steptoe, he crops up in one film very, very briefly. Harry H. Corbett was in Steptoe and Son as Harold, the younger part of that double act. He has his episode all to himself as well. Bernard Cribbins pops up in a couple. I'm just trying to think of other people off the top of my head. Patrick Mower, who's another well-known actor. Jimmy Logan, not the guy who won Eurovision, that's Johnny Logan. Jimmy Logan, a Scottish comedian, also has one film which you actually will pig's ear of. It's just strange that so many different people work their way through the Carry On films. If it's not one film or 15 films and the constant recurring thing, yes, they were churned out quickly. Yes, it was basically anything that kept past the censor in terms of sort of being risque and rude. There was always this risque, rude element about them, and most people who did them were paid not very much for them. They didn't like doing them. Kenneth Williams probably the biggest criticiser of this series of films, but he kept doing them for whatever reason. I think it's the only work he could get at the time. So much been written about Carry On films. I'm not an expert. I can tell I've seen all these films loads of times. I've met a couple of people who've been in them as well, which is fantastic. I met I can't remember her name now, it'll come back to me. Liz Fraser, that's it. Angela Douglas and Jackie Piper. Yes, met all three of those and they've been in Carry On films, so we'll get to their films as we go along. But yes, and Vanilla Fielding as well, who's also in one of these. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. These films were always on when I was a kid. ITV3 repeat them religiously over bank holidays. They only repeat the same 5 or 6 films, but they repeat them religiously. Channel 4, Film 4 have got some of the black and white ones, some of the really old ones, and a couple of the Rank Studio ones as well. It's been a few years since they've been on the BBC. I must be honest, some of the BBC don't show them anymore now, but they crop up in the schedules every now and again, but perhaps not as frequently as they used to. Carry On Girls had the distinction of being the very first Carry On film to be broadcast after 9 o'clock by the BBC, because they felt the subject matter was a touch, should we say, risque for pre-watershed audiences. And I said the very last Carry On Emmanuel, the film, the first original run, that was a very, very poorly made pastiche of sort of softcore 70s films like Emmanuel. And there was one film made years later which for some reason coincided with the 500th anniversary of Columbus discovering America. Well, not the reason why we had to make a Carry On film about it. Carry On Columbus, which I don't think from memory is in this collection, but it took the modern stars of the day, the well-known comedians like Aid Edmondson, Rick Mayall, Julian Clary, etc., mixed in Jim Dale and Bernard Cribbins from the old team who were still alive, Peter Rogers, the producer and director, and Gerald Thomas, both came back to oversee everything, and it wasn't very good. And the reason it wasn't very good because it was cheap, it looked cheap, and the thing is that sort of humour moved on, and it was a bit. I mean, I think it's all right. I think it loses its way possibly. The first third's okay, and I think it rapidly goes downhill after that. It's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. The Carry On film, it's all right, but it's not brilliant. But you know, that sort of humour and time had passed, so of a different generation, which is why it didn't work. Now, what I've showed you here, you can buy these yourself, but a few years back, probably going back to about 2005, 2006, you know, years and years, you buy these magazines, you can build your own DeLorean in like 300 easy ways of doing it, but you have to buy 300 magazines and you get a wheel. Those sort of magazines, that was very much sort of the rage. There's the same thing with DVDs and DVD collections, and the fact they brought out a Carry On one, which I think was $7.99 possibly, and you got a magazine and you got the DVD and you got this as well, which was make your own storage case, which is great because it's got a handle on it, so you can actually carry it. There you go, and then there's a Velcro on there, which is just beginning to pull off a little bit, so watch that. And it's very nicely designed with all the logos on and everything, and you've got things like Paradise Campsite, which was Carry On Camping, you've got Els Bells, which was Carry On Abroad, Khyber Pass, Carry On Up the Khyber, the hotel, what's that one, the hotel, I can't see that one, something, Ye Heart and Garter Hotel, can't remember what that one's from, possibly Carry On Girls. You've got all the well-known characters, you've got Kenneth Williams there, you've got Joan Sims, all these characters across the frontier, these well-known actors. So it's very, very, very well done, very well thought out, very, very expensive way of doing it, because I didn't realise there were that many DVDs, and it doesn't fill the two boxes of these. But as you can see what they've done, you can get the idea exactly where we're going with these by what's on the inside of the front cover. And then you can see what they've done is they've produced these DVDs to show those faces across the cartoon. So you've got From left to right, Bernard Bresslaw, Kenneth Williams, Joan Sims, Sid James, and that's Hattie Jakes on the end there. We'll show you the other ones on the other box when we get there. But all the films in here, so really, really well done, isn't it? Now, none of these were all these were released in different order. They didn't start with the very first film, which was Carry On Sergeant. They just sort of launched in. Obviously, just trying to get people to sort of pick this up and sort of go, oh yeah, I must sign up for that series. I signed up straight away. And how much money I spent? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, well, there's 20 DVDs. There's 160 quid. There's probably about 250 quid's worth of my money has disappeared on these DVDs. I could have bought the box set. Or two. I think there's 2 box sets. I think one box set has got a different set of copyrights to it, and another one. But I think I probably bought them both about 60 quid and saved myself a quarter of the money. Anyway, it ain't the point, is it really? What's really interesting here as well, we've got some classifications, all PG, apart from 2 films. One's actually got a 15 classification, and one's got a U. How interesting. So let's start off and just show you these in order. The great thing about these is they are the full release. And some of these will have, from what I understand, commentary. There are some commentary. These have been released elsewhere, so this is just basically a rehash of that, a rebadging of that, and that's what it is. So we'll just go through all these Carry On films in order, go very, very, very quickly. First one was Carry On Camping. Like I said, first one in this set release, not the actual first film. This was a much later one. There we go. I love the artwork on these as well. Great sort of classic film posters. And again, it's sort of got that British sort of sex comedy look in the 1970s. But it's got Terry Scott. I mean, Terry Scott's a name I didn't mention on there. We got Sid James, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Jones, Terry Scott. We didn't mention on that original run. Nothing really to show you on the inside. It's just a disc on the inside, I'm afraid. And then there's some screenshots in the back and a rundown of the cast as well. But like I said, there are on some of these some commentaries as well. Interesting to note. 4 names appear constantly on the back here. The screenplay, Talbot Rothwell. He took over in the very early stages. I can't remember. We'll get to him in a second. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He went off to Hollywood to write scripts there. So Talbot Rothwell took over. It was basically anything that he can get past the censor without causing the censor causing any problems. Your music was always done by Eric Rodgers, and obviously directed by Gerald Thomas and produced by Peter Rodgers. Those 4 people, very rarely, only the writer sort of changed very rarely. They didn't use teams of writers, they used one guy, basically whatever they can get past the censor went in. I'll put these back in here as I take them out. If I do that, it doesn't cause problems. Carry On Up the Khyber, one of the famous Carry On films set in the Raj British occupation of India. Roy Castle. Remember Roy Castle, the late great Roy Castle of Record Breakers? He's got a starring role in this one as well, which is very interesting. Angela Douglas, who I mentioned earlier, is in there. Terry Scott's also in this one as well. Cardew Robinson, another well-known actor from the 50s and 60s, got a very sort of strange face. Wonderful, very, very brief cameo as a fake here. But this is brilliant. I mean, this is one of the great film. People describe this as one of the great British film comedies of all time. It looks like they've spent money on it. They haven't, but it looks like they've spent money on it. Probably a little bit uncomfortable with Bernard Bresslaw and Kenneth Williams playing Indians nowadays, but they're not. We're not sort of talking Spike Milligan sort of impersonations of Indian people, which probably would be a problem nowadays. But it looks like they spent money. Peter Butterworth, who plays the missionary in this, is absolutely brilliant. The end sequence where they're having a dinner party in the middle of sort of like in this giant palace which is being sort of bombed and shelled. And everybody's going about it a very British way, apart from Peter Butterworth. Absolutely brilliant. He's superb in that. Really, 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 really is good. Private Whittle, played by Charles Hawtrey. Oh yeah. If you're gonna start watch a Carry On film, watch that one. Honestly, everybody who's in that is on top form. It's one of the best films, and quite rightly lauded and well received by everybody. It does look like one of the very best. Carry On Abroad. Probably not one of the better ones, although it does have its moments. Who have we got in this one? I mentioned Jimmy Logan. June Whitfield, again, well-known British actress, film actress, pops up in this one. Yeah, this is sort of the end of the road for some of them. Some of them beginning to look a bit grey around the edges, a bit frayed. Some of the jokes are a bit the same. Kenneth Connor's in this as well. I've got to mention his name, Kenneth Connor, who was in the very first Carry On film, pops up in Carry On Cleo, then doesn't pop up again until the 70s. he's in this one as well. But yeah, a few of these people. This was Charles Hawtrey's last film. Charles Hawtrey was a well-known alcoholic, and they'd had basically enough of him working on these films to sort of cut him off after this one altogether. This one looks like it's been made on a building site, in all fairness, designed to look like a hotel. What the idea was, the hotel was meant to be a building site, but it actually looks like it's a building site, and it looks pretty unsummery. Now, Carry On Matron. Matron, yes. Yeah, very famous phrase. And this one, again, not one of the better ones for me, but it's constantly on the... I always see it on the telly. It's on Film 4 a lot. Who have we got in this one other than the usual? Kenneth Cope, who was in Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, I think. Crops up in a couple of carry-ons around this time. Kenneth and Barbara Windsor's also in this one. Bill Maynard as well, who played... was in Heartbeat, wasn't he? Greengrass in Heartbeat's probably his most famous role, but also Selwyn Froggatt on the telly in the 70s, if you remember that. Yeah, it's about a strange plot about a gang of criminals who are trying to rob a maternity hospital for contraception pills. And they send in Kenneth Cope in drag. Yeah, it's standard Carry-On stuff, really. Nothing too special about it, but always on the telly. This is the one where I started begin to lose a little bit of interest in the series, reason because it's that everything just began to sort of sound the same. You probably, if you want to sort of start watching Carry-On films, I would probably recommend watching from the very beginning until around about the late 60s, 1969. The one to be getting to the 70s, there's a couple of good ones, but the quality really does start to go downhill. Everyone all of a sudden looks a lot older, and some of the jokes possibly aren't as innocent, and in all fairness are being repeated at this point. Let's carry on at the jungle, and this was this is a studio-based film, so it looks like it's been filmed in a studio, which it's, you know, from being up a jungle and lots of stock footage of animals and things. It just looks really sort of cheap. But it's got Frankie Howerd in this one, and my good friend Jackie Piper as well. So absolutely. Again, this one does crop up on ITV3 quite a bit. It just looks like it's a cheaply made film. But again, you know, Terry Scott, Sid James, Joan Sims, Charles Hawtrey, Bernard Bresslaw, Valerie Leon, who I think died last year, I think, as well. It's not one of the best ones. Now, this is one of my favourite. This is probably one of the most recollected Carry-On films of all time. The one that was set in a toilet making factory, because let's face it, the Carry-On films are full of toilet humour, so they had to go and make one eventually in a toilet factory about making toilets. It's actually meant to be sort of a bit of a commentary on about workers' rights in the 70s and strikes and things like that, but it does sort of go in completely different direction. It's called Carry On at Your Convenience. It's a great... I love it. I've seen this film so many times. I have a copy of this on VHS, I believe. Again, regular cast and crew in here. Richard O'Callaghan, who does couple of leading roles here as Mr. Boggs' son. Of course, Kenneth Williams played a character called W.C. Boggs. You know what territory you're into here, don't you? Patsy Rowlands as well, first sort of crops up in this one. She didn't pop up in too many before this time, but she creeps into these in the 70s now. And for me, what makes this film is the brilliant interplay between Hattie Jacques and Sid James. Absolutely brilliant. Makes this film, just elevates it. Superb. Now, I mentioned my good friend Jackie Piper years ago at a memorabilia thing. I had the opportunity to meet Jackie Piper, and it's elsewhere. I haven't got it with me at the moment. There's a picture of her from Carry On Loving, which she sort of signed for me as well, which is brilliant. And I got talking to her. Now, those of you who do know me and have sent me things in the post will know what my surname is. Well, her surname in real life is actually the same surname as mine. We aren't related, but she used to live around very close to where I live, so I was absolutely fascinated. We actually had a little long conversation about it, although we do share the surname in real life, although she changed hers. You'll know why if you sent me something, why she changed hers. I'd change mine if I could. Sorry, Dad, if you're watching. No, I'm only joking. But she was born reasonably close around here, but we're not actually related, which is very strange. So she signed that for me. She also very kindly signed me the inside of this DVD as well. Says to Russell, love from Jackie Piper. That was, again, a number of years ago. I keep saying my good friend, but it's been a few years back now. But yeah, so brilliant that. And pleasure to meet you. Some of these people are great pleasure to meet. They really were. It's like when I met Carol Cleveland from the Monty Python. You know, Monty Python, the TV series. Connie Booth was probably one of the regulars there, who ended up marrying John Cleese and going on starring 40 Towers. Carol Cleveland was the prominent sort of female role in that. They needed like a, you know, back in those days, a Dolly Bird or a secretary or someone to play a woman's role. Carol Cleveland was very much sort of the seventh member of Monty Python. I met her a few years back at one of these sort of conventions, and she signed a Monty Python book for me. Again, she's a lovely person to speak to. So it's great. So when you get to meet people like this, it's great. And then sometimes you get to meet them, they're not quite so nice, or they are a bit funny about it. Next one, Carry On Dick. Yeah. This gives you a real idea what the Carry On films are all about. No, not that sort of Dick. This is the tale of Dick Turpin. And it was actually the last hurrah for quite a few of the Carry On regulars. So Sid James, Hattie Jakes, they don't appear in any more films after this. Sid James' last Carry On role, this one, before he sadly died. Great character he was. Known in this as Big Dick Turpin. Jack Douglas is also in this as well, if you remember the name Jack Douglas. But yeah, it was actually probably, I think that was the penultimate Carry On film, and it was, many people sort of described it as, oh yes, this is much better than the ones we've been watching recently, because that was 1975, I think it was. But before that, a lot of the films really weren't of any particular high standard, so the series really sort of did tail off in the sort of the mid-70s. Carry On Doctor. Now this one has got Frankie Howerd in it. It's Frank Howard's first Carry On film, and he's typically Frankie Howerd in it. Anybody else in there? Again, all the regular cast are there. Barbara Windsor, Hattie Jakes, played Matron of course, Charles Hawtrey, Jim Dale, who took over as very much the lead sort of character in the Carry On films, then got lured away by Disney to go and make films over there, and it did still sit quite badly with a lot of the Carry On team, the regulars, that he was just using this as a springboard to further his own career. And although he did come back and sort of play the lead role in Carry On Columbus, there was a lot of animosity when he left. I think he did about 4 or 5 Carry On. I think he did Screaming, he did Cowboy, Carry On Doctor again. He may have done one more, but then he went off to America, and that was it then. So yeah. Now, Carry On Girls, I mentioned this one earlier. This was the one that BBC broadcast first of all after 9 o'clock. I noticed it was on ITV2 the other day at 11:30 in the morning, so obviously times have changed a little bit. Not one of my favourite ones, this one. It's got June Whitfield, Kenneth Connor in there. Again, it's all about local councils wanting to shut down a beauty contest. Just basically an excuse to Carry On films to shove a load of sort of semi-naked women into it. I'm sure it wouldn't fly today, that's for sure. Anyway, Carry On England. This is a bit of a sad film because it's right at the very end of the run, and it really is cheaply made. It's a nasty, horrible film. I really don't like this one at all. Kenneth Williams and Windsor Davies from Ain't Half Hot Mum playing pretty much the same character he did in that as well. But you can tell by the names, we sort of gradually, the regulars are sort of being phased out or moved on or sadly passed on. So we've got Kenneth Connor, Windsor Davies, Patrick Mower, Judy Geeson, who I think was in Bless This House, I think possibly, Jack Douglas, Joan Sims, Peter Butterworth, Melvin Hayes also in Ain't Half Hot Mum on the telly, and Peter Jones, who I think was the voice of the book in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if it is the same Peter Jones I am thinking of. This one, though, wasn't written by Talbot Rothwell. It was written by Jack Seddon and David Purcell. The music done by Max Harris. So already you can start seeing a change there. You can see that photograph down the bottom there as well. Kenneth Connor's got his nose probably where he shouldn't have. Everyone just looks old. The jokes sound old and a bit desperate, a bit tired. Now, during the Carry On run, they actually changed film distributor. So we had a couple of films with some really clumsy sounding titles. Basically, when you think about franchises, Carry On franchise, there's a point where they changed distributor to Rank, and Rank wanted to drop the Carry On name altogether. So this film was initially released, which I'll talk about in a second, and everyone, they wonder why it didn't do so well, because it wasn't called Carry On whatever it was. So they realised that they had to use the word Carry On in front of it to bring in the audience. Other people will just think it's a film called this. So this one is rather clumsily titled, and you can see on the film poster, Carry On in brackets, laughing until you have hysterics, but don't lose your head. And that's it. If you look at the film titles when it starts, it's actually called Don't Lose Your Head, not Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head. So now, you can probably just see it on the side there, it's more commonly known as Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head. But again, one of the better ones. This is the other one that Jim Dale was in, as I forgot about. So he's in this one. So 5 films he did. 5 or 6, actually, is another one he did. But yeah, again, all the regulars, Sid James, Kenneth Williams. Kenneth Williams is brilliant in this as Citizen Robespierre. Oh, Citizen Camembert, that's it. Pretending to be Citizen Robespierre. It's Pistache on the French Revolution. Citizen Camembert. Yeah, don't you know I'm Citizen Camembert. I had a big cheese. Jokes like that. But his face expressions and reactions in this are quite literally over the top. Kenneth Williams is brilliant. And again, looks like money's been spent on this one. It hasn't, but it's really, really good. Charles Hawtrey's in it. He's brilliant as well. Sid James is brilliant. Joan Sims is brilliant in this as well. Very underrated actress because she's so many different sort of types of played sort of women in these sort of films. She's brilliant in this one. Again, one of the later ones, but again, probably one of the better ones. Carry On Henry, which is a spoof on Henry VIII. Again, all the regulars are there. Terry Scott, Joan Sims, Barbara Windsor, Charles Hawtrey, Kenneth Williams. Kenneth Connor's back in action here. And yeah, it's a great guy with his chopper. It says there at the top. I don't think I've seen that one all the way through. Some of these I've watched religiously, and some of them I haven't seen all the way through. This is the very last one. This is the original run, and you'll see what I mean about this one. This is the 15 certificate. When it comes to Foreign Affair, it's Carry On, Emmanuel. That famous shot there of the wicker chair from the front of the film poster of Emmanuel. It's got Kenneth Williams sat in it. Now this cast again, there are some regular names. Kenneth Williams, Kenneth Connor, Joan Sims, Jack Douglas, Peter Butterworth, and then you've got Beryl Reid, Suzanne Danielle, who was playing the Emmanuel character. She's in this as well. Jack Douglas, yeah. This one was written by Lance Peters. Eric Rodgers did return to do the music for this particular one, but yeah, it's generally cheap, nasty, and really only worth bothering if you've never seen it before. I've never actually watched that one. I refuse to watch it because it would be too sad. It would destroy my memories of these great films. Now, most of those are sort of like the well-known one. This is going back into the mid-60s, and this is a sort of a Mick Taker sort of horror film. And this is Carry On Screaming with Harry H. Corbett of Steptoe and Son fame in the front there. You've got Kenneth Williams and then Fenella Fielding as well, who I also met a few years later. Angela Douglas got a big role in this one. Jim Dale, small role in this one, but interesting one. They sort of bake up, take off of horror films. One of my favourite films. I thought actually it's great. Harry H. Corbett plays Detective Bung. What a great name. This is another one which also gets a lot of, a very, very good reputation because of sort of the surrounding. This is Carry On Cleo. Now the reason this one gets it is because at the time they were 20th Century Fox were making Cleopatra, which nearly ruined the studio. Elizabeth Taylor Richard Burton film, which would have been Elizabeth Burton. I'm guessing he got married, but that sort of thing, and literally ruined that film studio, almost bankrupted it. And the Carry On team made their own sort of take off it. So Amanda Barry plays Cleopatra in it. You got Sid James, Kenneth Williams. Kenneth Connor's really good in this as well as Hengist Pod, which is a name which always made my dad laugh. Hengist Pod and Horso, which is played by Jim Dale. But yeah, really, really good one. Again, looks like a lot of money's been spent on it. That's because they were using the film sets. I think they were using the film sets, or some of the film sets, after they stopped production on Cleopatra. I don't know. Another one from the same sort of era, Carry On Cowboy, which is a Wild West thing. Again, Sid James, Joan Sims, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey. Charles Hawtrey playing a Red Indian. Angela Douglas as well. Jim Dale's also in this as Marshall P. Nutt. John Pertwee's in that one as well, playing an old-time prospector. But again, looks lavish. It looks like, they've sort of upped the budget on them. They hadn't. But yeah, very, very good. Now this one's, I must be honest with you again, really, really sort of early one, and not one I'm overly familiar with. This is Carry On Jack. which is a sort of Lord Nelson type spoof. Bernard Cribbins, Kenneth Williams and Juliet Mills. Charles Hawtrey also as well. But it's early sort of 1960s carry-on film, this one. Bernard Cribbins playing Albert Poopdecker. But yeah, a lot of people, you know, Cecil Parker, Percy Herbert, Jim Dale also in this one as well. Bernard Cribbins there on the back. Voice of the Wombles and many other characters. But yeah, probably one most people haven't heard of. This is the one that started it all off. The very first one, back in 1950, whatever it was. Carry On Sergeant, which was described at the time as a hoardy, cheap Jack Army comedy. And it's unbelievable that what this film actually spawned was what became this long series, because it didn't really get very well reviewed at all. William Hartnell, Doctor Who. This, some people sort of say, oh, this is the role that won him Doctor Who. No, it didn't. It's a number of years before Doctor Who, but it certainly helped, I would say. It certainly helped. 1958 this came out. I did say 55 earlier, didn't I? It's 58. I think since 58 I correct myself as 55. 1958, 5 years before Doctor Who, and it certainly would have helped. I think it was his role in Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner or something like that. I can't remember. It's got Bob Monkhouse, yes, comedian Bob Monkhouse, who was actually a well-known television star and had moved into films by this point. Did a couple of comedies called Dentist, Dentist in the Chair and Dentist on Holiday or something like that, and with Kenneth Connor, they're trying to team him together as like a double act or something. It didn't quite work. Kenneth Connor's in this as well. We've also got Bill Owen, who played Compo for years and Lass of Summer Wine on television. Dora Bryan and Shirley Eaton as well. Yeah, you watch this now and you'll sort of think, probably not quite as well known as the whole sort of carry-on film genre and style does not come from this film. But Kenneth Williams and Charles Hawtrey in it. But Kenneth Williams back in those days playing this very sort of snide upper class twit type thing. Completely different to what he sort of ended up playing in many other films. One of those other clumsily titled rank films, not rank in fact, it's bad. This is, you see there, it says Follow That Camel. That's what it was billed as. It meant to be Carry On, Follow That Camel. The interesting idea of importing Phil Silvers, Sergeant Bilko to many, for comic relief on this one. I think because Sid James was not very well. It didn't work because to be honest, it says Bilko joins the Carry On Legion, where you can't get any worse than that. I mean, yeah, we've got Sergeant Bilko, absolutely brilliant. Quality of the scripts on that programme was actually fantastic, and Phil Silvers, one of the great sort of comic actors, could just portray this fast-talking, fast-thinking American sort of GI. I've never seen Bilko. Used to be on all the time on BBC Two years and years ago. I've got a DVD somewhere, some Bilko episodes on. They brought him in here much more, many years later. It wasn't quite the same effect. But he's got Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Peter Butterworth, Bernard Brestall playing another Arab. Probably, again, not overly politically correct nowadays, I suppose, really. Charles Hawtrey playing Captain Lepice. Yes, you can make your own jokes up as you go along. Another one of these cheap ones towards the end of it. This is Carry On Behind. This was sort of set on an archaeological dig. Kenneth Williams and Elka Summer. A lot of the jokes in this film revolve around Elka Summer's poor capture of English and saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Windsor Davis, Jack Douglas, Liz Fraser, who hadn't been in this film for many years. Ian Lavender as well, I think, was in this one. Ian Lavender, of course, was in Dad's Army as Private Pike. I think it's this one. He's not listed on the back. I could be getting it wrong, but I don't think so. Yeah, also interesting, well, the main character in this, Kenneth Williams, plays, also shares the same surname as myself as well. Which I managed to get that sorted out. Box 2. There's a second box. What have we got here? Carry On Cruising, the first Carry On film in colour. Again, cut the regular Sid James, who plays a ship's captain. Again, different role to, people associate Sid James with this sort of, lets you laugh type character as he played, as he went on in the film. Not so much like it at the start of these films. He's very sort of straight, sort of like authority figure who's constantly being undermined by idiots below him, played here by Kenneth Williams, Kenneth Connor and Lance Percival. Lance Percival, most people will probably be familiar with from That Was a Week That Was, very topical live BBC Two programme back in the very, very early 60s with David Frost and William Rushton and people like that. Completely different, and this had Norman Huddis wrote the screenplay. Now he was the one who was the original screenplay before he went off to work in America and leave Talbot Rothwell to hold the reins. But yeah, it's all right. You see it quite a lot when I was a kid, but it was okay. Not one of the best ones. Now another black and white one, and a very early entry in the series, Carry On Constable, which features Leslie Phillips. You know, hell yeah. Leslie Phillips type voice, badly impersonated there, but that's the sort of thing. Yeah. So we got Leslie Phillips, Kenneth Connor, Charles Hawtrey, Kenneth Williams, Sid James, Joan Sims, Hattie Jakes, all in this one, black and white. Again, different style of film. Watch the black and white ones. Most, you know, you put, I don't want to watch, you know, the sort of sexy type ones, or the ones which are a bit sort of nearer the knuckle. There's still some near the knuckle stuff in this, you know, some of these jokes, not quite as bad, not quite as obvious, but some of these are actually quite well done, quite funny. The other ones sort of rely a bit more on that risque humour. Spoke for James Bond films, Carry On Spying with Kenneth Williams on the front. It's got Bernard Cribbins also, and Barbara Windsor. She was her first, yes, it was her first Carry On film. Charles Hawtrey also. Eric Barker crops from quite the early ones as well. And Jim Dale also makes a brief appearance in this one. So, yeah, it's... but yeah, black and white one. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. This was on the telly the other day. I was watching a bit of this. This early 70s Carry On Loving, which was set around a dating agency. Again, Sid James and Hattie Jakes playing off each other. Not as well as they're doing Carry On at Your Convenience. Again, a lot of the regulars in this one, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Jackie Piper's in this one as well, good old Jackie, Richard O'Callaghan, Terry Scott. But you get the idea, it's set in a dating agency, and there's lots of sort of people ending up in the wrong address and things like that, and walking into the wrong room. This one crops up quite a bit on Film 4. This is Carry On Teacher, one of the early entries into the series. Ted Ray is the leading character. Ted Ray, a lot of people don't forget Ted Ray. He was a very popular comedian on the radio in the 50s. You get sort of the and Ted Ray billing on this one, as if he's a bigger star than the rest of them. Leslie Phillips, again, Kenneth Connor, Charles Hawtrey, Kenneth Williams, Hattie Jakes, Joan Sims. So a little bit of a, you know, early on in the 60s, we're beginning to get a development here of a regular sort of cast and crew. But yeah, but that one pops up on Film 4 quite a lot. Carry On Nurse, that also pops up on Film 4 as well. There's about 3 or 4 film comedies they made which are set around sort of nursing and the health industry. So we've again got Shirley Eaton, Kenneth Connor, Charles Hawtrey, Hattie Jakes, Bill Owen again pops up, Joan Sims, Kenneth Williams, and Wilfred Hyde White as well, who plays a very difficult patient, and ends up with, well, I'll let you watch it for yourself. If I say the word daffodil, you may have an idea what I'm going on about. That also inspired a joke in a later film, in fact, Carry On Doctor. It inspires Frankie Howard to utter the line, "Oh no you don't, I saw that film." But watch the Carry On Nurse right to the very end, you know what I'm talking about. Another black and white entry, Carry On Cabbie, set around a taxi firm of men against a taxi firm of wives and girlfriends who didn't want to stay at home and do as they were told, decided to go and form their own cab company. So a very, very sort of women's rights film, that one. Again, Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Kenneth Connor, Charles Hawtrey, Liz Fraser, Bill Owen. So a lot of names recurring, aren't we? That's a good one. Carry On again, Doctor, which was a sequel to Carry On Doctor, but not a sequel, because all the characters are different names, but they're playing the same sort of characters. Strange. Sid James was in Carry On Doctor, but he had to play it bedridden because he'd, I think, suffered a heart attack. Or he wasn't very well, and he basically played the role lying down or sitting up in bed. Here he's playing a missionary type character. Again, this is typical Carry On stuff. Jim Dale, Barbara Windsor, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Joan Sims, Hattie Jakes, etc. You see Barbara Windsor there getting an examination. You playing this one? Is it? Yeah, Goldilocks. No imagination required. We may as well be near the end of it. Carry on regardless. Again, one of the early ones. This is set around about an employment agency. Again, a very sort of familiar lineup. James, Connor, Hawtrey, Sims, Williams, Owen, Fraser, right at the very, very start of the Carry On series. It's not a bad one, actually, that one. It's quite good. But yeah, so that's it. Now, those are all the films I have to show you in that series. Now, I know there's certainly Carry On Columbus is missing. But I think that's all the 29 of the original run. 29 films across the space of about 20 years. More than one a year, in some cases. They were just churning them out, just churning them out. But I think they're studio based, so we need to put together. Now, also that came with this were 5 other DVDs, which are quite interesting. This one probably not so much in that's interesting. Everyone who's in it is right in it, and this is Carry On, That's Carry On, which was basically a compilation of the best moments hosted by Kenneth Williams and Barbara Windsor in a sort of cinema. And this was made at the very, very end of it. And it was just basically sort of, 20 years of looking back on the best moments of Carry On with some inserted sequences going on there as well. But if you want, that's probably a very good point. You want to get an idea what the Carry On films are all about. Look at that one. Now, what also came with this set as well, during the 70s, there were a number of Carry On TV specials, where they would have specially written programmes, and they do a few specials that year. I think they were broadcast on Bad Boy Yorkshire Television. And as part of this series, because obviously if they just release that's half a box, they've actually got 4 of these. Now these are the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, so 13 TV specials here. Now none of these have been opened. I've opened the other ones, but none of these have been opened, so these are sealed. And I know very little about these. That one is loose and sealed. Are there Christmas ones on here? Possibly, because some of these were done like as on sort of TV specials. And back in the day, people used to do TV specials. Benny Hill always do a bank holiday special, a August bank holiday special, a Christmas special, an Easter special, those sort of programs. These would crop up every now and again, using whenever they could do as many people from the TV series. So you've got 3 episodes here called Nine Old Cobblers, starring Jack Douglas, Kenneth Connor, Barbara Windsor, Joan Sims, Patsy Rowlands. And then you've got Screaming Winkles, Jack Douglas, Kenneth Connor, Joan Sims, Peter Butterworth, Sherry Hewson, who was in Coronation Street for a number of years, and then Coughing Parrot. Strange title for a programme. Jack Douglas, Kenneth Connor, Joan Sims, Sherry Hewson, Peter Butterworth again. So 5 recurring cast members from the series in Carry On Laughing Season 1. Season 2, again, we got a Orgy and Bess, which I think was not quite a subtle take on Porgy and Bess, but we got Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Kenneth Connor, Barbara Windsor, Jack Douglas in that episode. So Sid James in it as well. Under the Round Table, these are all like historical romps. Kenneth Connor, Joan Sims, Peter Butterworth, Bernard Bresslaw, Jack Douglas in that one. And then Short Night, Long Days, Kenneth Connor, Joan Sims, Peter Butterworth, Bernard Bresslaw, Jack Douglas again. So using the same sort of cast members. Carry On Laughing 3, that's what it was called. This has got And in My Lady's Chamber, Kenneth Connor, Barbara Windsor, Jack Douglas, Joan Sims, Peter Butterworth, Bernard Bresslaw, Sherry Hewson. The Who Needs Kitchener, sorry. Gosh, my eyes are terrible. Kenneth Connor, Barbara Windsor, Jack Douglas, Joan Sims, Bernard Bresslaw, Sherry Hewson. And then Lampposts of the Empire, Barbara Windsor, Kenneth Connor, Jack Douglas, Bernard Bresslaw, Peter Butterworth in that one as well. And then the last one, 4 on this one. And what's also interesting, there was actually some Christmas ones as well. There were some Carry On Christmas episodes. Again, these do crop up occasionally on sort of the ITV satellite channels. So keep your eyes peeled for them. None of those were in this set, unfortunately. So we've got The Prisoner of Spender, with Sidney James, Barbara Windsor, Peter Butterworth, Joan Sims, Kenneth Connor, Jack Douglas. The Barren Outlook, Sid James, Joan Sims, Barbara Binder, Kenneth Conner, Peter Butterworth in that one. On the Run from Cromwell, The Sobbing Cavalier, Sid James, Jack Douglas, Barbara Windsor, Peter Butterworth, Joan Sims, and then finally One in the Eye, Jack Douglas, Kenneth Conner, Joan Sims. Not so many people in that one at the end, but that's it, another 4 episodes on there. So altogether we've got another 14, we've got 13 episodes, half-hour TV, 25-minute TV specials. Great to go in there. Like I said, Carry On Christmas was something which ran for a few years as well. There was also a compilation series called Carry On Laughing, which occasionally used to crop up on BBC Two, but I think it started off on ITV, which is basically just like, 30-minute fillers of just compilation of Carry On films. It was everywhere when I was a kid. I had a book on it, a giant, that's Carry On, giant, What a Carry On, the great big book and history of it. Times have changed. That sort of humour probably now isn't going to be correct for a lot of people, which is a shame. But we can't ignore the fact that these were, historically, social commentary at the time. You could watch these films and go back and see what life was like, what we were thereabouts. And certainly in the 70s, that the sort of change, you could see the way the film changed from the innocence of the 50s into the slightly more changing attitudes in the 60s through to the outright damn obvious attitude in the 70s, right to the very, very last film. In the space of 20 years, it's gone from being, an innocent sort of army comedy type film to an all-out assault on your senses regarding sex comedies. It's really, really strange. Some of the great British actors and comedians and stars of the day have cropped up in these films. Some people have got walk-on roles and you don't see them again. Some people are in every single film, more or less. It depends what you're brought up with. For me, this is my childhood, just sort of staring me in the face, and I do love these films every now and again, just getting a couple out and just having a watch through them, and I never tire of them. It's a shame. We will never see that sort of thing now again, a series that ran that long with that many films involved in it. Not even the Fast and Furious comes close to it yet. It's not far off, it's about a third of the way there, but I think there's 8 films, haven't they? There's an 8th film coming out. They're getting close to it, but 29 films in 20 years is a phenomenal output. You may argue the quality, and there's no doubt about it, the quality does vary quite tremendously towards the very end. But when it's good, it's good. There isn't anything better. There's nothing else that can put a smile on my face just by sort of watching Carry On Khyber, Carry On for that Camel, Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head, Carry On at Your Convenience. Just 4 or 5 films will guarantee just to put me in a good mood and just make me switch off and forget about everything else. Hope you've enjoyed that. Really, really good fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it didn't go on too long, and talk about stuff that you may not be aware of. By all means, do that. Never get that right. Do that thing there if you enjoyed that. I may do some more because I've got some other things I'd like to do as well. I'm going to do anyway, whether you like it or not. Just kidding. But very, very enjoyable. But thank you very much indeed for your time, for tuning in. I hope some Carry On fans out there have really enjoyed that as well. In the meantime, this is the Retro Bear saying thank you very much indeed for your company. We will see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care and bye for now.